Welcome to the Sullivan household. Said it's just too beautiful today to film inside to do 1 Samuel chapter 17. We got a blue sky, we got the birds singing, got my Japanese maple, my azaleas, got my ground cover going, got my red, white, and blue. I had some purple irises, but they've already dropped blooms. They'll bloom again, so I had all the colors covered. Just a gorgeous day. A little bit, maybe just a little bit, silly string left over. Yes, it's permanent from somebody that visited me back in August. And I don't think you can still see it. There's some toilet paper rolls stuck in the top of the Japanese maple, as well as the giant oak trees outside. David and Goliath. You've heard it since you were in preschool, kindergarten, Sunday school, on the flannel graph back in the day. You've seen the Veggie Tales. You've seen it all. Let me see if I can tell you a few things you didn't know. Maybe you did. The Philistines, that's the first answer on your sheet there. The Philistines were the enemy of the Israelites, probably more than any other, because the Israelites just failed to drive them out the way they were supposed to. And they lived on the coast, the western coast of Israel, down by modern-day Tel Aviv, down to the Sinai Peninsula. They're actually from Crete. They migrated from the island of Crete that we've talked about before, and they're just a seafaring people. They'd stolen technologies from the Egyptians. They were big in metallurgy. They could make things out of iron, had lots of weapons, and they survived on the sea and inland war. So they would go and make war mainly against the Israelites. They'd just leech off of them. And so they did that a lot. And they met up with the Saul's army, Jonathan and Saul and David's brothers. And of course, David shows up later. He was not part of the army, in the valley of Elah. And it's kind of a dual siege kind of thing going on. Who's going to blink first? And I'll get back to that later. But they come out and they do the old send your best man out, a la the movie Troy with Brad Pitt. Great scene where they all come out. Send us your best man. And that does two things. That preserves your army. And then that way you don't destroy your army just to win one battle. And then the second thing is you could absorb the other person's army. Now in the Jews' case, that's probably not going to happen, but most armies were conscriptions. They drafted people and paid them. They were mercenaries, the Philistines, so they would absorb their army. And so that's kind of what they're doing. Ancient armies basically had three types of soldiers, kind of like we do today. There was the infantry, which we would send out. They're the frontline guys. Back in those days, they called them hoplites. Hoplites. And so the infantry, that's an answer there, parts of the army, they would have swords and spears and shields, and that's the guys up front. And they're going to get killed a lot. They're expendable. You also had cavalry, and the cavalry are going to be on horseback or chariots if they had them. We don't have any evidence the Israelites had chariots at this time, but cavalry, they're going to ride horseback, heavy horse, ride over the men, ride over the hoplites if they could. Braveheart kind of thing going on there. And of course, the infantry guys are hand-to-hand combat people, up close and personal, gruesome death. And then the last part, there's infantry, cavalry, and then the last part's artillery. You say, what kind of artillery do they have? They didn't have gunpowder and cannons and such. Well, they had archers, bows and arrows, and they could shoot a long ways, highly accurate, but it's pretty much a spray and pray way back. And then they had slingers. And this is what David was. He was a slinger. And the crazy thing is how accurate these slingers could be. The slings would hang all the way to the ground from holding about shoulder height, depending on your height, pretty long, leather, handcrafted, custom made. And they could go revolutions of 6 to 8, 10 revolutions per second, spinning that thing, and they would throw rocks about the size of a walnut, pretty good size, maybe just a little bit bigger than a little bit smaller, I should say, than a cutie. Okay, and they could throw these things, and they were accurate up to about 200 yards, 85 to 90 miles an hour at muzzle velocity. So an 85, 90 mile an hour fastball with a rock the size of a walnut coming that fast to your head, it's deadly. The extra special part about that is two things. One, We have evidence of these guys being accurate enough to hit birds in flight. This is all they did. They were slingers. They were ancient snipers. And they could pick people off horseback, guys out of chariots. They could pick them off. The second really cool thing is in the Valley of Elah, one of the most predominant minerals you find there is a thing called barium sulfate. Mr. Schramm could tell you more about this. But barium sulfate in its rock form is twice as dense as granite. Now, some of y'all probably have granite countertops in your house. Twice as dense as granite. And so you can imagine this is not a sandstone, some easy rock. So just as dense as it could be. And they're throwing that thing 85 miles an hour from maybe just 30, 40, 50 yards. And I mean, they are picking you off. And they're knocking, at least knock a man out, and then he could be killed other way, some other method. So this is what David was. And you may know that David picks up 5 stones. And there's a lot of lessons about that. But what a lot of people don't know is, one, he wasn't overconfident. I mean, he kills Goliath with the first stone, takes him out, and then he's going to cut his head off. But takes him out with that first stone. But what you may not know is he picks up the 5, and a lot of speculation. Some people say it's representative of the Torah, first 5 books of the law. Some people think it had something to do with Goliath himself. Goliath was not the only giant of the Philistines. There was actually 5 brothers, or maybe 5 sons of Goliath, depending on how you interpret the scriptures. 5 giants known of from Gath that were in the Philistine army. So maybe it's a symbolic of, I'm taking this guy out, but there's 4 others, but I want you to know that my God can take them all out. The biggest lesson I want you to see here is, before we move on, is Goliath was defeated before he ever walked out there. Not just because of the faith and not just because of God is God. I mean, that's the main reason. But even from a logistic standpoint, he was defeated. And David had faith in God, but David had faith in God for concrete reasons. Not just, ooh, I believe in God. He knew why. This is the way this battle is going to go, and this is how God's going to give him into my hands. Goliath was beat before he ever walked out and said, who wants to fight? Made a little scene change there. Had to take a break. Still out front of the house. So, Philistines have come out. Goliath has come out and challenged for 40 days. He's been challenging the Israelites. And of course, if you read 1 Samuel 17, which you should do, they show up, and David shows up, I should say, to bring supplies to his brothers, as their father Jesse had sent him. He's appalled by the challenge, and he goes through, if you read it, you understand that he asked to go out and fight. Saul puts his armor on David, and he says, I don't need this stuff. Goes out. They trash talk back and forth, Goliath and David. David finally runs to the battle, which is cool. If you think about it, he runs out. He's a slinger, hits Goliath right in the forehead, downs him, cuts off his head. And basically, it's one of those, they're cheering, and then the Philistines go dead quiet. The Israelites charge and win the battle. 4 big lessons you can put on your sheet there, but I want you to know more than that. Not worried about your class points. You can get those easy. 1, never fight on Satan's terms. Don't do that. Don't fight on his terms. Don't go to the battleground where he wants you. No matter how strong you think you are, don't fight on his terms. That's what Goliath did. Did you notice how Goliath said, come here to me so that we can fight? You want to know why? Because Goliath is not a slinger. He's not artillery. All right? He's infantry. As big as he was, the ability to move. He had a big sword, he had a big shield, he had a big spear. Why? Because he's infantry. Come here to me, let's fight hand to hand, face to face. David's like, no, I'm not going to fight on your terms. I'm going to fight from where I am. That's why Goliath says, come here to me so they can fight. No, don't fight on Satan's terms. Second thing is, don't bargain with the world. Don't bargain. If you win, we'll serve you. If we win, you'll serve us. Don't bargain with the world. Follow God. Don't make a covenant with, hey, if I become rich and famous, I'm going to do these things. If this can just happen in my life, I'm going to do these things. No. Just take God's blessings, but don't bargain with the world. That's what Satan wants you to do. But he had been out there challenging, I already said, for 40 days. 40 days. It's a stalemate. You need to understand in spiritual warfare, a stalemate, Satan wins. You lose, because that means we're not serving. He's just stalling you from serving. We may think we're in a stalemate right now. House arrest, quarantine, social distancing, here we are, lockdown, and all of this. Don't stop serving. Don't stalemate. That's what Satan wants you to do. If he stalemates you, we lose, the world loses. You can still be spreading the love of Jesus to all kinds of people. Digitally, snail mail, jogging through your neighborhood. I just went on a jog just a little bit ago, and right after class this morning, and got my skinny on, and I'm waving at people and saying, hey, more than ever before. You may have noticed that. You can still be spreading the love. Don't stalemate. Look for ways to serve. Contact people maybe they hadn't heard from you. And the last one is drop your baggage. Whatever's holding you back from serving, drop your baggage. Get rid of that. Did you notice how David gets rid of the armor? He's like, I can't fight in this. No, I don't need this. Need my sling, need my rocks, need my faith. I've already told you, faith and family is the formula. You got to be going with that. Get rid of whatever's slowing you down. Hebrews 12:1. Let's get rid of every weight, every hindrance, every encumbrance, whatever word you want to use, whatever translation. Hebrews 12:1. Get rid of that. If it keeps you from serving God and loving others, you got to get rid of it. And that's exactly what David did. I'm going to fight the way God trained me to fight. I got to get rid of the things that are going to slow me down. David and Goliath. Goliath knew he's beat before he walked out there. You need to have that faith that David had, not because of yourself, but because you know exactly what God's going to do in your life. And he's going to bring us through this too.